everyone, hooked on concrete here with another concrete project. Today we are going to do something a little different. We are going to try to copy this model. The little house I am holding here is a Halloween decoration we purchased at the store. We want to make this bigger and out of concrete. We will not copy it exactly, however, it should be a pretty good representation of it. It will not be an abandoned house as is the model, but our project will be a little storefront or maybe a library. Please note that there is an item list in the description for the items we use in this build. Let's get started. First off, we need to get some measurements. When you use a model, you need to decide the scale you will be using. If you want it twice as big as the model, you multiply the measurements by 2. If 3 times as big, you multiply by 3 and so on. Now we begin to transfer the measurements to our foam board. Since the front is different than the back on this model, we must make each one separate. We transfer each of the measurements to our foam board. We draw out the decorative molding that is on the front of the building. I am not sure how this will go as we have never done anything like this before. But, we will give it the old college try. Once we get the overall design down, we plan out our doors and windows. We will also make a little decorative item out of our octagon blocks. When planning our build, it can be a little confusing at times because you are planning in reverse. So always put the good side of the blocks down as that is the side you will see. The side that is facing up will be buried in concrete, so that is something to always keep in mind. Time to cut our foam. The fascia molding is the part that sticks out the most, so we do not put foam there. We now begin the process of building up the layer. However far the molding sticks out, that is how thick the foam needs to be. I do a rough cut at first, then smooth out the foam with a rasp. Then they are glued with a hot glue gun. We repeat this process for each of the layers. I use a self-healing cutting mat to cut the foam on. Tip: there is a link in the description. Once we apply all the foam, we clean up the edges with the rasp. To get the desired depth, we have to build up the front with several layers. Once again, we clean up the edges and vacuum up our mess. Now we cut out foam to fit our door. We make it a little larger than the actual door, as we need to slide it into this pocket that the foam will make. We hot glue the foam in place. This is the mold that we use to cast the door. Tip: link will be in description. We use cement all to cast our door. Cement all is a fast-setting cement that works very well for casting items. We could cast the door with cement, but it would not be as strong as cement all. Here, we are laying out our blocks. The inside row will be embedded in our concrete columns, and the other will protrude out and be our other wall. The front has a lot of detail, so we must block it all in. Because of the detail, we have to double up on the foam that we block it in with. Another thing that changes for this pour, is that we must use hot glue to hold everything together. We have to use hot glue because the foam is too thick for the pins to go through. To make sure our bottom is flat, we use a straight edge with a hot pen to remove the excess. Hot glue does not give you a very tight hold on concrete, especially concrete that is not cured all the way. So to help hold things in place, I put a piece of 1/2 inch foam under them. The object here is to have the blocks end up hidden in the front, but exposed to the back to form outside walls. I then do the same to the other side. I put a spot of super glue on the blocks to give it more holding power. Now I make my octagon flower decoration that will go at the top of the building. These blocks are cast from a mold. Windows for the second floor are made. I use foam as spacers to put the windows in place. It is a quick and easy way to measure. We put a spot of hot glue to hold the windows in place. We cut foam to fill in the windows. This will prevent concrete from filling it up. I am planning on making a mold so I can pour the windows with one pour, as this will make it easier. It will also make the finished product look nicer. That is on my to-do list. I mix up some vinyl concrete patcher and pour it in the bottom molding. I made it a little runny so it would fill in all the cracks. Once this is poured, we can start putting our rocks down. The concrete patcher is mixed with a pancake-like consistency. Be careful to pour slowly as you do not want to displace the rocks. If the rocks are displaced, it will leave a gap where there is no rocks. You will then have to repair it. So it is easier to pour slowly to prevent this. The object here is to have a solid layer of rocks where no foam is seen. This will give us a nice rock face look on the front of our building. I cut a piece of hardware cloth to give our front greater strength. I have been moving away from the hardware cloth as I hate to use it, but for this pour I felt it was needed. The hardware cloth I am using is 1/4 by 1/4 galvanized. You could also use 1/2 by 1/2, but I found this on sale at a good price, so this is what we are using. You want the hardware cloth to end up in the middle of the pour. Sometimes this is easier said than done, as it has a habit of not laying flat. We realize we spray everything with water. Spraying with water will help keep the rocks from pulling out the water from the concrete too fast. This gives it more time to get in all the cracks. We realize it is not going to stay flat, so we take a screw and fasten it to the table to hold it down until cured. We put a little piece of foam where our screw is located, so it is easier to find once the concrete is hard. The next day, We remove the piece of foam, and then remove the screw. Fixing the hole is just a matter of mixing up some patcher cement, and pouring it in. We then remove our foam blocking. We slide the putty knife under all the blocks to get the glue to release. Now that it is loose, we can turn it over and see how the pour went. Since our trim is pretty thin, we must be careful removing the foam so that we do not break it. The bottom one was pretty hard to remove, and there is a problem with the trim breaking off. We decide to cut the top foam and see if that goes better. That indeed worked out better. Now, it is time to do the cleanup. You must clean up while the concrete is still green, otherwise it will be almost impossible to remove the concrete from the face of the stones. Using a putty knife we are able to scrape a lot of the cement away. Using a little wire brush we are able to get the rest. The blocks that we used on this pour were blocks that had problems. They were old and rough looking. This will give our building an appearance of age. So it will look like a building that is 30 to 50 years old. As I am scraping, I can see several problem areas that must be fixed. The biggest is the fascia trim that is missing. Another problem is areas where the rocks are missing. We will try to fix these areas. We scrape out the areas that are missing rocks, and put rocks in the holes. We then spray with water and put dry cement patcher in these areas. Sometimes it is easier to just put gloves on, and work it in with your hands. Using foam board as a backer, we now apply cement to our fascia that is missing. We also use a large putty knife as a backer and build up the missing fascia. I use a brick tuck point tool to smooth out the transition from the fascia to the building. But sometimes, nothing works better than your finger. Using a foam sanding block, I continue to clean the surface. Now, we clean the backside as well. We need to figure out our roof line. Our roof line will be below the peak in the front. I decide the best route to go with this is to build a template, then we will know exactly where our roof will line up. As you can see, Our actual roof line has a different angle than the one that shows on the front of the building. That was expected. What I did not expect is that the top two blocks are in the way of the roof line and must be removed. We use a grinder with a concrete blade to do this. Whenever grinding concrete, be sure to use eye, ear, and lung protection. This mask I purchased has worked well for this. It is very comfortable. I have several cases of the cheap masks that I bought at a flea market, but they will probably never be used as I like this so well. I will leave a link in the description in case you want to check it out. This is just a regular angle grinder with a concrete blade. It makes short work of the 4 blocks that needed to be cut. We transfer the line from the template to the model, and glue in our backer boards. We spray the surface and then pour in some patcher cement. This pour does not have to be perfect as it is mainly to hold the roof until it is mortared in place. Always keep a mold handy to use your excess cement in. This way you will not waste it and you will be making the blocks you need as you go. Now, we block in the back of our building. We use pins to hold the foam in place. The pins we are using are quilting pins. We test with the template to make sure it fits well. Now, it is on to the windows. We use the hot glue gun to put the windows together. We stack our blocks as we did on the front. We draw a line down the center and use foam as spacers to make sure everything is even. We also fill the windows with foam. We place our rocks as we did on the front, taking care to cover all the foam. It is always good to spray the rocks before you pour, as this helps to get the cement in all the cracks. We use a sawzall without the blade to vibrate our concrete. This also helps to fill all the cracks. We also cover our windows with cement. The next day, we remove all our blocker boards and prepare to clean up the face. My wife recently purchased a large spatula for me that works very well for prying up our buildings. It has a nice serrated edge that cuts through the glue and releases everything. And just like that, it is loose. Now, we move to the cleaning. We love to use our dog brush for this as it works better than any other brush we have found for large areas. Some of the areas are missing rocks, so we must remove the cement and put rocks in again. This is caused if we pour too fast. In the future, I may do a double pour. One of real runny mix, then after that one that is thicker. This may solve this problem. I may experiment with that. We spray everything down, and put rocks where they were missing. Then we put vinyl patcher cement on it to hold them in place. We remove our blocks that we cast the other day. You want to be sure to remove them while still green, otherwise they will be hard to get out of the mold. Time to put in our door. Our door was cast from a mold. I will leave a link in the description. We mix up some patcher cement and fill in the cavity. The goal here is to fill it up so the door is just below the surface on the back side. Then we carefully smooth the edges. Since the back and front are different on this model, we decide we should build a jig to put it together. Trying to flip it over with the front being so much bigger than the back, we worried it would not hold together. We put the 2x4s where the wall was going to be. We will cast both walls together. I am trying out some new silicone fingers here. I keep burning myself with the hot glue, so I thought I would give this a try. The bottom we will cast like we always do. However, it will be a little harder as we have to work around the jig. I use a paper cup to pour the concrete. The top wall we have to do different. Since we are pouring it face up, we must put the rocks in by hand. This is the way I used to build my houses, but found pouring them face down was easier. But for this pour we have no choice. We pour in the patcher cement, then start placing the rocks in the cement. I pat them in with my hand and a little piece of foam. This side will most likely have these rocks all the way through, as when I vibrate them in, they disappear. I guess it is better to have too many, than not enough. I let it harden overnight. Now it is time for the cleanup. We use our dog brush, and a little wire brush for the cleaning. We then use this wire brush to be able to apply more pressure. Once the cleaning is done on this side, it is time to remove the jig, flip it over and expose the other side. We use a large spatula to break it loose. I am a little apprehensive, as it is very large on the front and I do not want to break it. And, there we go. A piece of cake. Now we clean up the other wall. We prepare the model to pour concrete over the window openings. We pause a moment to take out our blocks we cast yesterday. We mix in some concrete fibers to give it more strength. We fill the windows, and also put cement in the corners for more strength. Taking the silicone spatula, we spread a thin coat of patcher cement to fill in around the rocks where it is missing. We let it dry for a bit, then brush off the rocks. We are now going to pour our windows. We make a template for the roof. It is usually a good idea to do this, as your building may be a little out of square. This is the time where you can make alterations. We use the template to make our roof mold. We use a floor entrance mat that is wrapped in pallet wrap. This will give our roof some texture. This is the jig I made to do my roofs. I am adding boards on it, make it bigger so it will hold our building. I want to pour one half, then flip it to the other side and pour the other. I put a screw in place to hold everything down. There was some holes in the plastic, so I am taping them up. I should have just left it as the tape messed up the roof texture, but I would not find out until after the roof was poured. We are using hot concrete here. Hot concrete is a fast-setting concrete. This will enable us to pour both sides of the roof on the same day. I put little L brackets at the roof line for extra support. If you find your mix is too runny, you can put dry concrete on it to soak it up. Once it hardens, I put a piece of foam across it to kind of hold it in place, and I turn it around and prepare to flip it up. I tried to do this once with regular concrete, and lost it. So you can really only do this with the hot concrete if you want to do it all the same day. Now we put boards under it, and flip it up. It looks like everything is going to be fine. Now we pour this side as we did the other. Once the concrete has cooled, It is safe to handle gently. Now we prepare to mount the roof. We use mortar to attach the roof. It is just a matter of filling in all the cracks. Using gloves, I can get a nice edge on the roof. Now I will build a nice little eave. This will really give our roof strength. Now, I clean up the grooves on the roof. We finish out our windows. I found these painter's knives, they really work well for detail work. And there we go, our finished model. Not an exact copy, but has a similar appearance. Especially the front. Once again, thanks for watching.